Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Hertenstein. I am a principal architect here with Logicalis. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Cloud Solution Provider, or CSP program, and specifically what value that can bring to customers in your organization. We'll also be talking about something new from Microsoft. It's fairly new. It's called the New Commerce Experience, where we can talk a little bit about how you can provide licensing through a CSP program, and again, the benefits there for that particular piece. Go ahead and jump in first and kind of talk a little bit about what is the Cloud Solution Provider program, or CSP program. Basically, it's a way that you can purchase Microsoft technologies, bundled services, support, manage and consolidate billing, and do all these different pieces and parts around everything from M365, Windows licensing, SQL licensing, Azure consumption, Dynamics 365, and you're able to deliver that directly through a partner like Logicalis. With the Microsoft CSP program, we at Logicalis, we can provide a lot of different options here, from things like basically taking all of your Microsoft technology solutions and all of that billing and trying to provide a consolidated platform for you to be able to see that. It provides a very simple per user subscription type licensing on things like Dynamics and Office 365 with no minimums, no maximums. It's very flexible. You're allowed to add and remove users and seats as needed. So the nice thing about that is, if we kind of digest and we think about how we've typically transacted licensing in the past for different products and solutions from Microsoft, we had usually, if you were a large enough organization, we typically provided some type of a licensing structure. You did a 3-year commit, for an example, and you had X number of seats. Let's just say we had 1,000 seats. You always had to make sure that you did a true up at the end of that particular that year or that anniversary in that particular contract period. With the CSP program, you don't have to worry about that. If you have a very dynamic user base within your organization, you do a lot of hiring or a lot of contract-based work or what have you, let's say manufacturing or financial services or anything like that, it becomes very difficult for you to manage that in a contractual basis. By having flexibility to be able to add and or remove users or adjust the products they're using, it gives you a lot more flexibility and actually can drive a lot of cost out of your organization. And it also shifts those costs from being a capital expenditure where I have to buy every 3 years or make three 1-year payments or what have you. You're able to make a monthly commitment. So now we're moving more to an OpEx model for that licensing transaction or that particular service. Another great usage of this is, let's say that you have a very complex project and we need to move a user from a very basic, we're just going to provide somebody with email, but now we need to have the ability to provide a user with email and voice services. But we only need it for a short-term contract basis. We're going to bring some contractors in and they're going to work on a big, large project for us, maybe do, a new implementation of a particular piece of software or what have you. What we would typically do in this case is we would just up that license to a different higher level. If you know what the licensing is, we're going to move them, let's say, to E5, so they have that voice capability and they have all the licensing that they need for the Microsoft products. We can use that for 3, 6 months, whatever, and then we can turn that back down, either eliminate that license or move them down to a lower tier. So it just gives you a broader capability, a broader scope of being able to provide more granular access to resources and products within the Microsoft suite. I also want to talk a little bit about too that we're not just talking about from the Dynamics and Office 365 like a per seat basis, but this also is true when it comes to Azure consumption resources. You have greater flexibility with things around Azure reserved instances, for example, or server-based subscriptions for Windows licensing and SQL licensing. So CSP can be a very big advantage to organizations that want to get out of that particular contract-based vehicle for transacting of said licensing. With Logicalis, we actually provide with a lot of CSP providers, but specifically with Logicalis, there's a lot of advantages to doing this over the contract base. For example, support. When you have a CSP provider like Logicalis, We have to be the front runner, the first interaction whenever you have an issue with Microsoft-based services and solutions. So let's say you're having a problem with access to a particular resource within Azure, or access to an Office 365 service. Let's say you can't seem to access SharePoint for some reason. You don't have to call directly into Microsoft. You're actually calling directly into us as the CSP provider. There's US-based tiered resources where we're able to actually try to help troubleshoot that faster. And the nice thing is, if it is something, let's say, that is a Microsoft-based failure, let's say, Azure Active Directory has had some kind of a blip and there's a problem, we obviously wouldn't be able to fix that particular issue. We'd want to actually take that directly to Microsoft. The nice thing is, as a direct CSP provider, when that ticket gets submitted, it doesn't just go to the bottom tier within Microsoft's support system. We actually have a premier support agreement directly with Microsoft through that CSP program. So now we're able to actually go out there and get that ticket usually resolved much quicker than you contacting Microsoft support directly. Like I said before, a lot of the CSP pieces, not just from that support perspective, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some additional support efforts that can be there as well. A lot of time it's more of a better way of transacting licensing. So there is more flexibility around that purchase. When we talk specifically around that flexibility, that's where we talk about more control over when a license is activated, what level of service you're needing for that particular user, and then being able to provision that back down. Versus when I do a true up, I'm stuck at that number for a year. So in essence, I'm overpaying for the number of users I have. And that again becomes very difficult if you're not a very static user base. And then also real-time provisioning. This to me is so important. We have dashboards and capabilities for you to either do one of two things. Either you call directly into us and say, hey, we need a new subscription within Azure provision, or I need some more seats for my Office 365 subscription. You can contact us as the CSP provider directly to do that, or we actually have cloud management tools in place that allow you to directly interface and provide self-service around these if you have said delivery capabilities within your organization. We also have, for organizations that may not be large enough to really try to get to the point of getting a discount from Microsoft, say because of seat count, maybe you're too small to fit into an enterprise agreement or any type of licensing vehicle like that. As a CSP, we actually do have ability to help control and provide value around that competitive pricing piece. So we can go to market and be more strategically valued when it comes to that cost per user per seat, and or in your Azure consumption pieces as well, and providing those particular possible discounts within your consumption side of the house. With most CSPs, and especially with Logicalis, we have a very, very strong managed services add-on capability as well that can be purchased as part of the CSP program. This will provide everything from basic FinOps services, SecOps services, monitoring services, so you can always know when services are up or down, or all the way to full-blown managed services. This allows an organization to stop looking at and doing what I refer to as kind of that ditch digging of IT, where you don't have to go in and manage your individual servers all the time. If you need somebody to patch your infrastructure, validate that things are up, maybe provision a subscription for you so that way you can go to market quicker. This allows your IT teams to be more strategic and optimize the focus, so they're looking at initiatives that really matter to the business and to the organization. They don't have to focus on the day-to-day operations. All CSPs, we need to be able to provide additional layers of services like this as well at additional costs. So typically these things are based on consumption or per seat basis. We can provide more information if you're ever interested. So really, what other things are part of this whole CSP? So of course, we can provide usage-based online services. So we can look at what you guys are using and leveraging from a SaaS offering, whether it's within Office 365 or Dynamics, or directly through Azure services. We can also look at things around your Azure consumption, like, for example, I'm a big SQL guy, and obviously I run our cloud practice here. So I always want to try to optimize the costs that customers are spending within Azure. If we can provide more ways to drive out the consumption of that compute cost for an organization and start leveraging more platform services versus VMs, it can get very competitive from a costing perspective. For me to maintain a Windows server, for example, with Microsoft Enterprise SQL on it, that can be very heavy from a base support perspective. I have to support the operating system. I have to support the patching of the operating system. I have to manage SQL itself, all of that jazz. And I also have to maintain the instances in SQL and the databases, plus all that connectivity. If there's a way that we can actually pull out a piece of that, let's say that we only then have to manage the instance of SQL, or even better yet, just the individual database, that can usually drive significant cost savings by moving that to a SQL platform service. By leveraging CSP, we're able to see some of that insight to try to help gain those efficiencies within an organization as far as things like platform services. Also, when it comes to reserved instances, a lot of times organizations, they lose that ability to, or think about that concept of reserved instance costs. There are workloads that we have, let's say domain controllers, file servers, simple web servers, things like that. Maybe you don't want to go to a platform service for these, but these are usually pretty static workloads. We'll stop consuming them on a per month basis. Let's actually do a reserved instance cost, or an RI. This allows you to actually consume these services and basically say, okay, I'm going to buy this compute for 1 year or 3 years. This will then provide you, either you can buy upfront with an RI, or you can just roll it into your monthly costs at a reduced cost structure than you would if you're just a pay-as-you-go type of pricing. We are very, very stringent in trying to work with our customers to actually look and identify where we can find reserved instance savings to try to reduce the amount that's actually spent every single month on Azure. We want you to actually have more cost optimization within your environment. Also, there's a hybrid use benefit a lot of times within the licensing that you may have purchased for Windows or SQL. So we want to make sure that if you have softwares that you have purchased or you have rights to, you don't need to buy the operating system or SQL on those VMs. You can bring your own licensing. And to us, again, that's a very, very important piece. For example, a lot of times with RIs, you can usually find anywhere between 60 to 70% savings if you're going over from a pay-as-you-go to a 3-year RI. You can get up to about that amount. And then if you add on top of RIs plus hybrid use benefits, you can usually find an additional 10, 20, 30% savings, maybe even more, just on the licensing side itself. So we're here to help from that CSP perspective to help align and make sure that you're capitalizing on reserved instance costs, as well as making sure you've activated your hybrid use benefits. So really, what do you get from all of this stuff that we talk about from that whole CSP perspective? That comprehensive invoicing, centralized vendor support, 24/7 support, escalation through Logicalis's Premier Support Agreement. So when you have a problem, you're going directly to Premier Support. You don't have to buy it. It's already part of that CSP piece. There are managed services offerings as well that stack on top of that for an additional cost to provide things like FinOps, SecOps, monitoring services, full managed services. We also have a very heavy professional services team. These teams are always brought in with our customers at key times. If you ever say, look, we're really interested in starting to look at Kubernetes services, for example, and I want to start leveraging AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, and you need some guidance on how you go down that path. Or like we talked about before, getting off of VMs and start leveraging SQL platform services. We have architects that work within our pre-sales divisions and our professional services teams that can work with you and maybe possibly do a professional services engagement to help modernize the environment and start to really optimize what you're doing in the cloud. So we also have access to obviously our certified engineer program within all of our professional services. And we do have obviously access to all the different migration tools that could possibly be out there to help you migrate services that may not already be in the cloud. And we can help you align those. We also specialize a lot of times in consolidations of clouds. We see a lot of multi-cloud environments where customers don't want that. They want to centralize within Azure, for example, and they want to stop having all this IT sprawl. We can help with those particular respects as well. Now, if you're already on some form of an agreement as far as, let's say Azure, for example, we're just going to use Azure just to make it simple. If you do have a compute, a lot of times you may have some type of licensing vehicle where you've done a pre-purchase of your Azure environment. The issue is that you can trigger an overage. In this case, you're going to end up getting billed directly from Microsoft on a monthly, quarterly basis, whatever. Well, that could be a disadvantage to you because it becomes very hard to track that. What's my initial consumption side? Where is it being consumed? Why is it being consumed this way? Why am I in an overage perspective? And I'm tired of having this on some type of a 3-year agreement. I'd rather move to a more OpEx where I'm spending per month. It's great to be able to still move over to that CSP program. You can take what you're already doing today in Azure. I have countless number of customer examples where we've taken a customer from an agreement perspective where they have less flexibility, less cost savings capabilities, less potential discounts. And we've actually taken them post their year 2 anniversary, between year 2 and 3, when they start triggering these overages, then we actually have that opportunity to move them over to that CSP platform right away. It doesn't mean we have to rip everything out and replace it all. That's not what this is. So we're able to help customers that are consuming today under that agreement and move that over to a CSP platform. And now you're able to get all that tooling, all of the support, all of the capabilities that I have been talking about so far. So it's something that even though you're in a licensing agreement of some kind, some model that way, please let us know. We're here to help. We absolutely want to help you understand what your options are. So with that, I hope that I've been able to cover anything around the entire CSP program, the new commerce experience, or NCE. And we look forward to helping you in any way possible to help you try to understand the better ways that you could possibly consume the Microsoft products around Azure, M365, Dynamics, how CSP works, and especially how that new commerce experience is going to be leveraged in the future to help modernize the way you're consuming your products today under Microsoft. Again, my name is Andrew Hertenstein, the Principal Architect for Cloud here at the US Logicalis team. And if you'd like more information, please feel free to reach directly out to us, or you can reach us at our website at us.logicalis.com/Microsoft. Thank you all again for your time, and I hope you have a great day.